Pickle. Hello guys, Hyeperion here, back with another video, and today we are checking out the Haunted Cemetery rework, which came recently along with the Halloween patch. I'll link the patch notes in the description. Anyways, this rework changed the Cemetery more than the Lair of Draconis rework. It's pretty much a new dungeon now, and I shall say 3 times better. If I see this dungeon pop up in Godlands, I'm actually gonna go in it. The most notable difference in this rework is the Cemetery isn't 5 layers of dungeons. It is now a long noodle. So you don't have to dig deep into the Cemetery. You walk across it. I'm not too sure if that saves time, but I like it. And you may be thinking, would there be no Portal of Cowardice? Well, there is one after every boss, so you don't have to worry about going through 5 bosses in 1.5 minutes when Oryx says,
"I've closed this realm, you will not live to see the light of day."
And yes, I said 5 bosses. There is the Pumpkin King now. This boss isn't too hard and behaves like the first boss where you have to kill the minions it spawns to progress. This time the minions aren't skeletons, but spooky pumpkins which daze. So yeah, it's a pretty simple fight. You will encounter this boss in round 3, which contains 3 new mobs. The Grave Spider, the Risen Mummy, and the Vengeful Vampire. And combined, well, just any decent number of them, they rack up huge damage. The spider alternates between slowly walking and running around. When it slowly walks, it does a decent damaging shotgun. When it runs about, it does a lighter shotgun. The Risen Mummy is interesting. It is a somewhat beefy mob with a slowing shotgun. The more you hit it, the more damage it deals, just like the Crusher Abomination. And it can hurt. As you see, it did over 100 damage on my Paladin. The last new mob is a Vengeful Vampire. He doesn't do as much damage, but seeing from his resemblance of Lord Ruthven from the manor, he confuses, which can get annoying and real dangerous combined with the Risen Mummy's slow, high damage shotguns. For the rest of the dungeon, all the mobs have slightly changed behaviours to add a bit of spice, and everything now has HP scaling. The Troll Matriarch now shoots hallucinating shots, which can actually get confusing on what you are supposed to hit when there's so many entities, and she spawns a few minions in the beginning which you have to kill to progress. The Ghost Bride can no longer be paralysed and is more aggressive, new boss. The Gravetaker now takes a better path instead of walking around mindlessly, and it stars Armor Break, which is kinda scary, but at least the souls he releases aren't so insta-poppy now. And finally, Skuld has been changed a decent amount. It appears to be impossible to insta and skip through her phases first of all. There are many more zombie spawns too, and they slow you if you are near them. After she has been whittled down and exposed, she walks around for a long time, giving time to clear the minions. But damn, she actually walks for quite a long time. She then collects her skulls and becomes a big aggressive one, and it's kinda dangerous with all the zombies, her high damage paralyzed, and herself being aggressive. Another noticeable change is Skuld only talks in the first round for the beginners, and even gives a boss warning. She then barely talks for the rest of the dungeon. So the pacing of the dungeon has definitely improved, other than walk. There is another bonus somewhat significant change to the dungeon. With the removal of the Halloween Haunted Cemetery, it has now been implemented here. After you killed Skuld, there is a small chance, just like Thessel, for her to say some text in which you quickly hit her, and the Pumpkin Master spawns. If you don't know this boss, it is pretty much a reskin encore. So it's a little dangerous and tricky compared to the Godlands dungeon the Cemetery is. Onto the loot, this dungeon has a major improvement. Each boss drops a guaranteed speed pot for a random player, and a second pot, which is different among each boss. The first boss gives wisdom, the second boss gives vitality, the third boss gives dexterity, the fourth boss gives attack, and Skuld gives defense. That's all 6 base pots, and you can get up to 10 pots a dungeon. I managed to get 9 once, which is pretty cool. And to make each boss have value, the special loot has been spread and increased. The Troll Matriarch hasn't changed much. The rest of the bosses now all drop a white bag. The Bride drops Resu and Mantle of Skuld, the Pumpkin King drops Plague Poison and Ghastly Drape, the Grave Caretaker drops the Aetheryte Dagger and the Soul's Guidance Wand, which is a new white bag, and Skuld drops all the whites and the full ST set. Essentially doubling the chances of getting a white bag, pretty much, which makes this dungeon much more worthwhile even if you don't go all the way to the final boss. Speaking of the loot, they have been buffed and tweaked too. The Rogue ST set now has become soulbound and changed up. The Aetheryte remains the same, the Ghastly Drape, which I managed to get my hands on, paralyzes now before cloaking, at the cost of no speedy, but it's not really that good. The Mantle gives more mana than the Harley, and the Ring is still disgusting. For the whites, the Resu now gives 15 wisdom, but if you get hit it drops down to 5 for 3 seconds, which is a pretty unique change, but I can see it working on Pallies. You can get a better HP buff for over 5 seconds, and then you have time to dodge after you get hit, so yeah, you get your whiz back afterwards and use it again. And it may help with Knights perma-stunning if they haven't reached the level yet. And the Plague Poison now has significantly more damage, being 100 behind tier 6, making it really good now. And the new white Soul's Guidance. This one has a pretty bad shot pattern, it's literally just to get one, and slightly less damage than the recomp, but has a chance of spawning a damaging soul which deals damage over time and can potentially curse, which is really interesting, but that shot pattern is really bad. So that's pretty much all the changes on this update. The Cemetary is now much more fun and worth it. There are a few changes I didn't cover, but they aren't as significant, so I'll leave that up to you. Enjoy. Okay, so there are red flowers here, but the gravestones are tinted red too, and to me that looks oddly romantic. Number 1 sign.